Everyone in baseball is still in shock over the death of one of its fiercest heroes. The brave and powerful Dave Parker, better known as the Cobra, has died at the age of 74. But what did he do in his last days, and why did some fans stay quiet at his funeral? Today we'll talk about the impact, the scandals, and the emotional farewell that have shocked the whole sports world. Dave Parker did more than play baseball. He caused a stir. He was a legendary figure who ruled the game with unfiltered ability, charisma, and an attitude that made news just as often as his home runs. But behind that cocky grin and powerful swing was a man who had to deal with personal fears, health problems, and more scandals than most people knew about. This movie goes beyond what's in the news. We will show you the unforgettable high points and heartbreaking low points of Parker's journey. Look at how his friends and fans reacted strongly to his death and show the personal parts of his funeral that made people cry. You won't believe who showed up out of the blue and who didn't. When Dave Parker was alive, were he ever really given flowers? And how did the problems he had off the field shape the man he became in his later years? Wait a minute, because what we find next could change the way you always remember the Cobra. Before the fans, the awards, and the news stories, there was a kid from Cincinnati who had big dreams. David Gene Parker was born on June 9, 1951, in an area where sports were more than just a side activity. They saved my life. Parker went to Cincinnati's Quarter Tech High School, where he quickly became known as a star athlete in many sports. He was big and strong even when he was in his teens, so he could have easily become a professional football player. It was baseball, though. It was the crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, and the strategy of the field that really won his heart. We're lucky that he picked the glove over the football. Parker's first MLB game was in 1973 with the Pittsburgh Pirates. He showed right away that he was different from everyone else in the game. He wasn't just good, he was electric. He was strong at the plate, lightning fast in the outfield, and played without fear. He was already getting attention by 1975. He hit a crazy .334 with 30 home runs and 117 RBIs in 1978, which earned him the National League MVP award. During this time, he got the name the Cobra because he hit with such power and speed, and because he was so good at scaring pitchers and outfielders. Parker owned the field, not just played baseball, but that cockiness caused trouble. People were angry and envious about his $1 million deal, which was one of the first in MLB history. Fans, reporters, and even Parker's teammates began to wonder if he was too flashy, too sure of himself, or too ahead of his time. Still, he shut down the haters with his bat in every game. He became the Pirates' face during one of their most exciting times, and he helped them win the World Series in 1979. The team made the song "We Are Family" their theme that year. No matter how tough he looked, Parker was the big brother of that locker room family. Things start to change here, though. Dave Parker was fighting a different battle behind the scenes. It would last for years. When the 1980s came around, Dave Parker was at the top of his baseball game. His endorsements got bigger, the crowds in the venues got louder, and his face was everywhere. But as the light got brighter, the darkness around him got darker. Fans couldn't see at the time how the storm was getting worse behind closed doors. Even though Parker was still playing very well, rumors began to spread around the league that he was partying late at night, having problems in the locker room, and using drugs. And in 1985, those whispers became a national scandal when Parker's name was linked to the notorious Pittsburgh drug cases. This event would stain his career for good. There was a lot of cocaine use in Major League Baseball, and Dave Parker became one of the most well-known people involved. Not only was he accused, he also testified. He revealed that he used drugs and even named other players who had been involved. Some people thought this was cruel. Others thought it was brave of him to finally talk about a problem that had been a part of baseball culture for years. And the reactions started right away. People who used to wear his shirt booed him from the stands. Hate mail was sent to him. Sports writers who used to praise his swing now wrote articles that made fun of him. Even though the league didn't want to ban its stars, it did fine them and make them do community service. Nothing loud but a very loud fall from power. Parker didn't give up though. He didn't run, he looked it straight in the eye. He signed with the Cincinnati Reds in 1984, which was a surprise. Going back to his hometown, some people thought it was the end of Parker's career, but he turned it around and made it better. In 1985, when he hit 34 home runs and drove in 125 runs, he was named the Return Player of the Year. In the same year, he came in second place for MVP, just behind Willie McGee. What they did was truly amazing for someone who had been shamed in public, but the damage to his image didn't go away. Parker put up numbers worthy of the Hall of Fame, but he would spend the rest of his life fighting to regain the respect he once had, not just from fans but also from the people who helped make the sport what it is today. The story wasn't done yet, though. He played a part that no one saw coming at the end of the 1980s. He was a mentor to young players, pushed for drug education, and was honest about the risks that almost killed him. His scars gave him a reason to live, but he couldn't get rid of one question for years. Would people in baseball ever forget about him? Wait until you hear what happened to his health in the decades after this to believe how hard this fight was for him. The real war didn't start until a long time after the first one, when Dave Parker got a death sentence. By the 1990s, Dave Parker had already made a name for himself in the music business. He had over 2,700 hits, hit 339 home runs, and drove in over 1,400 runs in Major League Baseball. He played for 5 teams. He had won 2 batting titles, been an All-Star 7 times, and won 3 gold rings. There was a quiet fight going on off the field that had nothing to do with scandals, stats, or the Hall of Fame. On paper, he was one of the best in baseball history. Parker was told in 2012 that he had Parkinson's disease, a neurological disorder that gets worse over time and makes it harder to control your body's moves. The speed, the strength, and the confidence of a man who was once praised for being physically strong. It was an awful turn of events. On the other hand, Dave Parker never let himself be a victim. Parker didn't try to hide his illness, he told everyone about it. He spoke out about his journey and the need for more study, support, and awareness, which gave other people with Parkinson's a voice. He set up the Dave Parker 39 Foundation, which was named after his famous shirt number, to help underserved areas affected by Parkinson's disease, and raise money for research into the disease. Parker said in interviews that it wasn't the pain or even the shaking that was the hardest. He was losing the ability to do simple things like throw a baseball to his grandkids or sign autographs for fans, but he never lost his sense of fun, his kindness, or his love for life. In a joke, he said, "If I can hit Nolan Ryan's fastball, I can damn sure fight Parkinson's." Over the years, it became clearer that his health was getting worse. With a cane, he got around, his famously loud voice got softer, and he spoke more slowly. In spite of everything, he kept going to baseball games, neighborhood events, and rallies to raise awareness about Parkinson's. He did not stop moving forward. People who had booed him decades before were now waiting in line to thank him, not for hitting home runs but for being brave. Barry Larkin, Eric Davis, and Tony Perrette, all of whom used to play with Parker, publicly praised him for being a leader and strong. Many people began to push for him to be inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame, saying that his stats, leadership, and influence were enough to win him a spot there. Even though there had been problems in the past, the call never came. Parker was passed over year after year. His name would show up on the list, and passionate fans and writers would vote for him, but he never made it past the first round. He carried that pain in his heart in silence. Always kind, but it's clear they're upset. He gave a lot to the game, so being left out of the hall felt like the last slap in the face. Parker kept his attention on the things that were most important to him: his family, his foundation, and the fight against Parkinson's. In the last few years, his health got worse, so he went into assisted living, but he was still mentally sharp. In order to stay in touch with his friends, he kept working behind the scenes with advocacy groups and sent out videos. Then on June 20th, 2025, the terrible news came out. Dave Parker had died. He was 74 years old. Everything in baseball stopped. There were tributes from baseball stars, fans, sports writers, and community leaders from all over the world. There were videos of Parker's best performances, conversations with his contagious smile, and heartfelt posts that all said the same thing. We didn't show him enough love while he was here. People didn't just remember his stats, though. It was how he fought everywhere, not just on the field. That he took responsibility for his mistakes, used his pain for good, and kept going even when his body begged him to stop. But the most powerful part was yet to come. Because on the day of his funeral, what happened next made everyone lost for words. Friends, family, fans, and former teammates of Dave Parker got together on a warm summer morning in Cincinnati, the city where his journey started, to say their last goodbye. The setting was right. Crossroads Church, which is one of the biggest venues in the area, and had welcomed Parker for community events and charity drives in the past. But on this day, it wasn't about the crowd cheers, baseball history, or argument about the Hall of Fame. The point was to remember the man. The scene was polite and quiet, but it made me feel very sad. It was put in the middle of the stage, and a handmade Cincinnati Reds and Pittsburgh Pirates jersey cover was put over it. Parker loved both of those teams very much. Tall flower arrangements, in the shape of baseballs, bats, and even his famous number 39 were placed all around it. The front rows were full of Baseball Hall of Famers. To recognize him, Barry Larkin, Dusty Baker, Ken Griffey Jr., and even people from the MLB commissioner's office were there. Some of them hadn't been seen in years. Close friends of Parker's like Eric Davis and Andre Dawson walked by the coffin without crying and gently touched it as a way to honor him. The silence was broken by the choir's soft singing of Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. No one saw this coming. A very old woman stood up in the crowd and walked slowly toward the stage. People looked around as cameras flashed. Parker's big sister was there, who not many people had ever seen. What she said shocked everyone in the room. She broke down in tears as she said Parker had privately paid the hospital bills for more than 40 Parkinson's patients in Cincinnati, many of whom he had never met. He wasn't interested in praise or attention. She said that all he wanted was for people to feel like they weren't fighting alone. He told me that he would beat it for someone else if he couldn't beat it for himself. The crowd looked like it was shaking. People who used to think of Parker as a big-time athlete now saw him as an even stronger figure, a quiet hero who works in the background. After a short time, Eric Davis took the stage to give the official address. He said in a shaking voice that Dave was the kind of person who made you feel like you were important, even when everyone else was trying to erase you. He showed us how to play, fall, and get back up. A film tribute played on huge screens while the service went on. There were rare home videos of Parker dancing with his grandkids, old clips of him playing sports and speeches he gave at schools and Parkinson's events. It was real, it looked lovely, it was true. But the most moving part of the day may have been the very end of the service. "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" by a live saxophonist played over and over again in the church as the funeral procession began, and his body was taken out. But this wasn't the happy version that's played at ballparks. It was slow, scary, and full of feeling. People cried. Some said thank you in a whisper. Others just stared in shock, trying to understand how big the life that had just ended was. As the coffin was being put into the hearse, a line of young boys wearing number 39 shirts from Parker's youth baseball charity stood in front and gave one last salute. That picture of young people praising the man who made it possible, this is the one that everyone on social media is talking about. There was one more twist though. Later that night, it was quietly confirmed that the mayor of Cincinnati will propose renaming a part of the downtown ballpark district Dave Parker Way. This will make sure that his legacy lives on in the city that raised him, gave him back to, and will never forget him. Dave Parker's life was never all straight lines and bright spots. It was honest, raw, and always human. Parker went from being a kid in Cincinnati with a bat to a Hall of Famer whose swing could fill a stadium with silence. He lived a big life, fought hard, and left an effect that few others could match. He gave us memories we will never forget. the cannon-armed throw from right field in the 1979 All-Star Game, his MVP season, and his role on the We Are Family Pirate squad that won the World Series. His heart is what we'll remember most, though. Parker